So as probably most of you already know, on this channel we have covered many of the specialist characters' backstory. Last week we did Nomad's, and as it turns out, while we were diving into his backstory, one of the things that we found out is that Nomad happened to mention a previous Call of Duty character, Outrider, in his comic. Now, if you didn't already know, comics were a thing that Treyarch decided to release before Black Ops 4 actually came out. And I told you guys that this week we would be exploring the idea of Outrider coming back to Black Ops 4. We're going to dive into Outrider's backstory and discuss whether or not it is actually possible that Outrider comes to Black Ops 4, and in fact, what evidence supports that. And not only that, by the end of this video, I'm going to discuss whether or not Outrider could actually be the very next specialist character coming to Black Ops 4. But first, what evidence do we have to support this, and what is Outrider's backstory, and does it make sense with the lore of Black Ops 4? But guys, before we dive into Outrider's backstory, I just wanted to let you guys know that later today over on Twitch, I will be doing a live stream of Black Ops 4. And if you've ever wanted to play a Call of Duty game with me, my live streams are a perfect opportunity. I pretty much live stream every day, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And when I do open lobbies, which means you actually get an opportunity to play some Black Ops 4 with me. So if you're interested in my live stream or playing some Black Ops 4 with me, check out the first link down in the description. It'll take you to my Twitch, and I should be streaming all night from 7 p.m. till 12 p.m. So if that interests you, check out that link down in the description. But without further ado, let me shut up and let's talk about Outrider. So as I mentioned earlier, in Nomad's comic, Nomad mentions Outrider as a character. He says he should have borrowed some of Outrider's equipment, which is an interesting little reference, but it's just that. It's a very small little bit of his comic. However, there is another character's comic, Battery, whose comic almost entirely revolves around Outrider. No, you didn't hear me wrong. Alessandra Castillo, the character from Black Ops 3, is almost in Battery's entire comic. And it's kind of weird because you get to see Outrider from a different point of view than you did in Black Ops 3. The first time she's introduced, she's in a bar and she calls herself Les. Not Outrider, Les. I mean, she then goes on to later call herself Outrider, but that's not how she starts the conversation. Also, she's not wearing a hood, she's not wearing a bunch of armor, she's literally looking like she's ready to go dance at a club. And then later, once Battery and Outrider actually end up on their mission, once again, Outrider is not wearing the same equipment that she wore in Black Ops 3. She's wearing a backwards baseball cap and really looks completely different. And honestly, kind of looks a little bit like James Charles. But that's kind of beside the point. Now, as far as the actual story of the comic goes, it really has nothing to do with Outrider's backstory. It's just important that Treyarch went ahead and designed an entire comic around Battery and Outrider actually working together, and on top of that, Outrider's also in Nomad's comic as well. Now, it gets even weirder when you look at the timeline because these comics were actually released before Black Ops 4 was released. And what that means is that they planned these comics out as if Outrider was going to be in the game. But, of course, as we know, she's not. But this could actually be explained by the third time Alessandra Castillo has been referenced within Black Ops 3, and it's actually on an Easter egg on the map frequency. And we have talked about this in a previous video before, but I'll just very quickly fill you in on what it is. So I haven't yet done a backstory video on the map frequency, but as far as this map goes, it is a listening facility. Basically a spy facility to spy on the specialist characters. And when you go to the one side of the map and you look at the computer screens, you can see various computer screens for many of the different specialist characters in the game. You got Battery, you got Seraph, but then there is also some computer screens that are blurred out. Now, one of these computer screens belongs to Zero. How do we know this? Well, the description and words that are showing perfectly describe Zero as a specialist character. The big one being at the end down there saying a black hat hacker with a history of large-scale politically motivated pranks, also anarchist, system intrusion. It perfectly matches the description of Zero, and as we know, Zero has been added into the the game. Now, there are also 2 more screens like this, one of them perfectly describing Spectre, as you can tell the words explaining his surgical blade, and the other screen perfectly describing Outrider. And as you can see, Rosinia is the first thing that's up there, Zurich Defense Force. These are all things that are directly taken from Outrider's bio back in Black Ops 3. And well, if one of these characters was added in, why wouldn't the other 2 be added in as well? Well, there's a little bit of a twist to this little Easter egg, because as it turns out, I went to go record this today and the Easter egg is gone. All of the screens that previously displayed these blurred out character descriptions are gone. The screens are completely blurred out altogether, and the Easter egg has completely disappeared. Now, no other YouTuber has made a video talking about how this has magically disappeared. I am literally the first one, so I don't really have any theories on it. One idea I have, though, is that since the current event is coming to an end in the next 15 days or so, this could be preparing us for the next event. Maybe these screens are going to change in the coming days, displaying the next specialist to come, whether that be Outrider or Spectre. Personally, I believe it will be Outrider, but we'll get into my reasoning in a second here. Because I don't often do this, but I'm literally the first person to find this, so if you enjoyed the video, if you find this fascinating as much as I do, if you could leave a like rating, maybe share this with your friends, that would be incredible. But anyway, back to the video, because I've got a lot more to talk about. So aside from this Outrider Easter egg mysteriously disappearing, what other evidence do we have that Outrider could be coming to the game? Well, first of all, we have to decide whether it's actually possible by looking at her backstory in Black Ops 3. So the one thing you may not know about Outrider, and you can find out in her bio, is that she is actually an orphan, and she grew up in the streets of the favela in Rio de Janeiro. Now, the thing about this is if you listen to the very first thing she says in her transmission, it sounds like Outrider being in Black Ops 4 is impossible. Here's what it says.
Growing up on the streets of Favela da Rochina in the 40s was no joke.
So right there, it sounds like this is already off the table, because you said she grew up on the streets of the favela in the 40s. Well, this game, Black Ops 4, takes place in the 40s. But as it turns out, the thing she says right after this can make this all make sense.
Among the street kids, 22 was considered old age. Most didn't make it that far.
Now, the first time I heard this, I thought this meant that she was maybe 5 years old in the 40s and grew up on the streets, but maybe that's not actually what she meant. She meant that in the 40s, she was 22 living on the streets of Rio de Janeiro, and then if you read up and find out about the rest of her story, she ends up getting in trouble on the streets, a police officer ends up saving her, she ends up joining the Zurich Defense Force, and the rest is, well, history. So for this all to make sense, her going from the streets to the specialist characters would have to happen in a matter of a couple of years, which is completely possible because that's how it works for most of the other characters in their stories as well. Now, the one thing that I gotta mention is Outrider's birthday. So once again, in Black Ops 3, to see the specialist characters' birthdays, you have to look at their dog tags in Kill Confirmed. And Outrider's birthday appears to be the 1st of August 2040, which wouldn't make any sense with the timeline we just set up, but as we mentioned in the previous video, every single specialist character's birthday on their dog tags is exactly 23 years later than their birthday in Black Ops 4, and I explained why that is in the previous video, so if you want to check it out, check out Seraph's story video, and that will explain the whole thing. But as I mentioned, every other specialist character's date of birth is exactly the same day and month, but 23 years previously. So, assumably, Outrider's birthday would be the 1st of August 2017. Now, does this line up with what we just talked about? This would make Outrider 22 in the year 2039, so not quite in the 40s, but if she lived on the streets for a couple more years, maybe to 23, 24, this could make this whole timeline make complete sense. In fact, this would give her even more time to be picked up by Savannah and Jessica and be working with the specialist characters by the year 2043 to 2046, where the events of Black Ops 4 actually take place. So, it could possibly line up. Now, another question I have seen many times on my Twitch live stream on YouTube is that if Outrider is brought into the game, what are her specialist abilities going to be? Well, as far as an ability goes, I have no idea, but once again, if we look at Battery's comic, she can be seen several times holding and using the Sparrow or her bow from Black Ops 3, which assumably would be her specialist weapon if she was brought back to Black Ops 4. And then finally, why do I think Outrider will be the next character added into the game? Now, first of all, the frequency Easter egg that we just talked about, how that Easter egg was completely removed from the game, really makes me think it's either Spectre or Outrider, because why else would they remove that other than to create hype around those two characters? Anyway, the reason why I think it's going to be Outrider over top of Spectre is because of the time of year. So, the way that this works is the event is going to start on approximately February 15th. Now, as we know, Outrider is Brazilian, grew up in Rio de Janeiro, and a giant event that takes place in Brazil is called Carnival. And as it turns out, this event is starting this year on March 1st, exactly 2 weeks into that event that is going to be in Black Ops 4. So it's possible that the theme to this event, it could be Carnival, and that is when they will introduce Outrider to Black Ops 4. The timeline would make sense, the story would make sense, and the timing of the Carnival event would be a perfect time to bring Outrider into the game. Now, is the Carnival event confirmed in Black Ops 4? No, absolutely not, but I think there is a very, very strong chance of Outrider being the next specialist character. But you can let me know down in the comments, did I convince you that she's going to be the next specialist character? Do you not think so at all? Do you think she's not going to be coming to the game altogether? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel and like what you see here, the best way to stay up to date on all of my videos is make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you have notifications on. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're